Now, last month, Ugandan General Katumba Wamala, the one you see in the picture, with her daughter, there was an attempted assassination on his life. In the end, he survived, but his driver, is it the driver or the bodyguard, known as Kayondo, as well as the daughter that you see in the picture, known as Brenda Nantongo, the daughter was shot 56 times. 56 bullets were put into her body, and then the girl died. General Katumba survived with a few gunshot wounds on his arm, and since then, the only time we have seen him in public, he was reappointed as Minister of Works and Transport and things of that sort. But the investigations have been going on about the murder or about the attempted assassination of such a high-profile individual. Now, I personally, as I have been making my research about the UPDF, about the army, and the dirty games that are going on within this institution, I kind of I've kind of changed my attitude towards this institution, because there are so many known unknowns, just like Donald Rumsfeld said. There are known unknowns, the things that we know that we don't know, and there are also unknown unknowns, the things that we don't know that we don't know. And then there is the known knowns. Those are the things that we know that we know. So when you dig deep into the UPDF, it is a very interesting situation, and the power struggles that are taking place within the institution, and the way Museveni is trying to play within it to make sure that he cements and consolidates his power. Most of the issues that are happening on the surface, at times you might be very, if you are rational enough, you might move a wee bit slower, especially when the institution starts to turn against its own people who have served it, people who have been loyal to it, and so on and so forth. Because we have people who are loyal to the UPDF, to the UPDF, that is the Uganda People's Defense Forces, as an army, and then we have people who are in the UPDF, but they are not loyal to the UPDF, but they are loyal to Museveni. Now, for Katumba Wamala, it is really quite interesting, because this assassination attempt, first of all, we don't know what the motive is, but the motives are two. Some people say that the general was targeted, by Al-Shabaab, and that is the narrative that we are getting from the Uganda Police Force, one Paul Lokech. Now, Paul Lokech is the head of the investigations in Katumba Wamala's killings. But what is interesting is Paul Lokech has no background in criminology. He has no background in investigations. He has absolutely no background in any of these issues. But then we have to ask ourselves a simple question. Is Paul Lokech conducting these investigations as a military officer, or is he conducting these investigations as a person who has had training who has had training in criminal offenses as well as investigations? Or is Paul Lokech trying to cover up something? Because why is it that the Uganda police is not given the mandate to investigate these murders, these high-profile murders on its own? Why does it have to be a military person whom we know that he is a murderer, whom we know that he has just come from Wharton, Somalia, to head investigations? Since when did he get the expertise to investigate these criminal issues? Number one. Number two, we have a police IGP known as Okothochora. Okothochora is a trained policeman, because the way they train a policeman is not the same way they train a military officer, because these two have different mandates. Now, Okothochora, we are not seeing him anywhere, but we are seeing his deputy, Paul Lokech, to come out and speak in public about these murders. And that's why we see there are so many contradictions. That's why we see there are so many extrajudicial killings, even if we have not seen any bodies. That's why we see so many things happening that no one can explain, not even the victim himself who survived the murders. Now, For us, me as a person, I wouldn't like if they bring people who are really, people who really murdered the gentleman, sorry, the lady, Brenda Nabukenya, and who attempted to kill Katumba. But I have no problem about that, and I will give them credit. But when we see the same script being played once and again, they shouldn't take us for being stupid, because most of us have been following these stories for as long as we have been old enough, and how these things are happening. Right? Now, why is it that a senior police officer, Okoth Ochola, is not the one addressing the media and is not the one leading the investigations? Number one, because the civilian was murdered. Whereas Katumba might have survived the assassination, but the civilian was murdered. We have seen the stifling of these institutions by Museveni ever since he came to power. By the way, you should understand that between 2000, Katumba Wamala, this gentleman who survived the murder, he was the first IGP. And that is the step that Museveni did to get a gentleman from the military and make him the head of the police. And that is the time, the militarization of the Uganda police force is the time that we lost our police. Because when the police was militarized, whereas Katumba Wamala did so many things, improving crime in Uganda, in Uganda, and professionalizing the police and so on and so forth, yes, but it was more in a militaristic way. And that is why you see the police we have today is really not as good. Now, when Katumba Wamala was out of the institution, Museveni brought in another military man known as General Kale Kaihura. General Kale Kaihura has been the longest-serving IGP, deputized by Okoth Ochola. Now, Kaihura himself also was not a trained police officer. He was a gentleman from the military, and he brought in the militaristic way of handling the police. From there, we went into Sabiti Muzeyi, who was the deputy police IGP, but he was acting in the capacity of IGP. Now, on his watch, people were murdered on November last year, and so many people were killed and all this kind of stuff. And Sabiti Muzeyi was cited for sanctions and things of that sort. As a matter of fact, as we speak today, Sabit is among those people who were banned by the US and these other countries from entering or stepping foot in their countries. So he had to be moved. Now, after Sabit Muzeyi was moved, we see Okoth Ochola. Okoth Ochola is also from Wotton Somalia, and he was placed into this particular institution. But what is interesting is that Museveni no longer wants these so-called deputy IGPs or these military men to last very long within the police. And I think Okoth Ochola, before the end of this year or next year, he will be out of the institution anytime soon. And then another military person will be brought in. Now, let us go to the issue of Katumba Wamala's murder and the suspects and what happened. Because as we speak right now, 4 suspects have been so far killed, which is really interesting. That you really have someone whom you can put in front of the cameras to tell us how everything went down, but then you just decide to murder them. How have the orders changed? How have the orders changed? I mean, for credibility purposes, surely you would want someone to be alive. Now, this means 2 things. That either this gentleman, known as Lokech, is not in charge, of which he is not in charge. It also means that Lokech is just given what to speak. He is not the one making up these things. These things are coming from the same place where they came from when the murders started with Kaihura's reign, and then they proceeded with Sabiti's reign, right? These scripts come from the same place. Lokech was in his office drinking chai and eating some mandazi, whatever, pancakes or donuts. He wasn't out there in the field. So, what these people did is the same people who cooked up stories in the previous high-profile murders of Kawesi, Chigund, and all these other people. They are the same people that are cooking up these narratives, which is really interesting. Call it the propaganda wing of the NRM, because we see the same similarities in their statements, and that they should have handled it, with care. Now, what this means is, does Katumba Wamala, the biggest question, does Katumba Wamala believe all this? And we shall come to that. Now, a second suspect, Kawawa Ramadan, also known as Amin, in the June 1st attempted assassination of General Katumba Wamala, has been shot dead. Katumba, a four-star general and the former chief CDF, was attacked along Kisota Road in Kisasi between 8:47 to 9 a.m., where his daughter Brenda Nantongo and driver Haruna Kayondo were killed on spot when their car was sprayed with more than 56 bullets. The Deputy Inspector General of Police, Major General Paul Lokech, who is the overall supervisor of the investigations team, said Amin was killed while attempting to flee from the security personnel who were retrieving the two guns from their home, from the home of one Juma Saidi in Ikanyogoga village, Bokasa Parish in Machinje Division. Lokech yesterday, Thursday, briefed the media that another suspect, Hussein Ruwama, aka Monster, was shot dead when he attempted to fight the forces that had zeroed down on him. Security alleges that Monster was the person who shot several bullets on the right-hand side of Katumba Wamala's military vehicle, leaving Nantongo and Kayondo dead. However, Lokech contradicted himself today Friday when he said Monster, before he was shot dead, revealed that he had given the gun to Kasambira Sirimani, aka Mukwasi. This raises questions on how a suspect who allegedly fought forces arresting him to the extent of being shot shared such information about who was hiding the gun. Although Lokech insists that Amin was killed around 8 a.m. on Friday while fleeing from Saidi's home, security forces had revealed by yesterday evening that the two suspects had been shot after vital information had been extracted from them. Now, let us pause there. Okay, let me finish this paragraph too. But Lokech maintains the narrative that Monster's information helped to arrest Mukwasi, who later revealed that he had also handed over the gun to Amin. Amin, who is now dead according to Lokech, first took them to Kagoma, then Nansana, until Mukwasi convinced him to reveal where the guns were being hidden. I don't know if you're confused as I'm confused, but the issue here is some gentleman commits the murder, then gets the gun, sends it over to a friend who flies chapatis. Then the police officers come over, the Mukwasis, the Amins, the Kanawe, and all these other people. Now, there are some interesting things that I've seen in this. Number one, all the assailants, the assassins, are Muslims. Number two, all the assassins come from one tribe, Buganda. Now, you should understand that Museveni had opened a war on Buganda. He opened a war on Buganda's land tenure system, the so-called Milo land, and he opened a war, on the Buganda king, trying to ridicule him in public, and also claiming that Bobi Wine was only voted by Baganda because Baganda are tribalistic. So the Baganda have now decided to turn against each other to even kill one of their own generals. Now, this is funny, because when you see these things, they are really worrying. And for me, I wouldn't hold people from other tribes. Like, I'm not a stereotype who will paint people with the same brush and speak people, if a Muganda really tried to kill Katumba Wamala, and you have someone who is really, really, whom people can look at and say, okay, this is the person that killed. Well, that person, whether he's Muganda or Muslim or whatever, I do not care. If he committed a crime, he should face the law. That's it. But then, if these things are still the same and they are similar on how they are being done, and the same suspects are the ones that we saw, they are the same tribe, they are the same religion, then there is a problem. There is a very big problem. Now, the other issue is that, okay, these guys got vital information from these guys, and then afterwards they are killed. Now, they don't kill one person, not two suspects, not three suspects, but four. 1, 2, 3, 4 suspects. What a coincidence. Two things we have to ask. In this world, or in this generation of social media, in this generation of smartphones and dumb people, even if the people are so dumb, let me tell you, I'm yet to find anyone who witnessed these particular murders. Now, if anyone is out there, and I'm willing to change my statement, two things are likely to have happened. Either these murders didn't take place, number one. Number two, or these people were killed, but not in the places they said they were killed from. Because if they were killed in public while they were running, we would have seen social media, a wee bit of clips and people saying that their loved ones were killed, and people saying that, oh, so and so, there were bullets that were flying in such and such an area. Secondly, how can you kill someone who is not armed? Thirdly, this is what I've told people, that look, the problem is that when you get these military men and hand over the institution of the police to them, they don't even know how to arrest a suspect. They don't even understand that if at all what they have done today, killing 4 suspects, their case is already gone. If we have a serious judge in Uganda, the case is going to be thrown out. Now, we hope that we don't return to Joanna Kagezi issue, because Joanna Kagezi was going to release the Muslims because the public prosecutor could not defend the things they had done to these so-called suspects. The suspects had been tortured, meaning that they had extracted the information, as well as they had been coerced, tortured to provide this information, which is really unacceptable, because you can't use that information before the courts of law. So Joanna Kagezi had to go as a judge, and then someone else had to sit into her chair. Now, we'll see what is playing out here. Not only is the judge's life who is in the case, because this is the same script, right? Because 4 suspects are dead, others have turned out being tortured. Now, how are you going to as a public prosecutor, how are you going to defend that case? It means that the police intentionally was killing the case. They were killing the case intentionally. Because if you have these suspects that would have acted as witnesses, number one, you have these 4 suspects, because the suspects were not armed. Why not? You see, when you have military men, where they have to use a baton, or they have to use tear gas or pepper spray, they will throw a grenade. They will use an RPG and blow the whole person up. That's who they are. That is Lokech for you. Person who has been in Somalia fighting these so-called Al-Shabaab, if he even was there fighting, he calls himself the Lion of Mogadishu. For him, his way of doing things, oh, okay, you have decided to run and you're a terrorist? Shoot. Why not shoot the legs? This is literally killing evidence. Lokech should be put through before the courts of law and the people who conducted these investigations. However, let me tell you, this government of ours has never been honest. And it does not operate on the principle of honesty and truthfulness. Because if they did, those suspects would have been brought before us. You cannot tell me that you arrested the suspect and then the next day they tried to run and then you killed them. Why wouldn't they run the day you went to arrest them? And secondly, I'm not stupid, me too. Like, if I was one of the assassins, the first thing I would do, these people watch movies. These people know all these tactics. If these terrorists unless if the terrorists wanted to be caught. But if these people didn't want to be caught, why not burn the clothes or throw them in the latrine or throw the gun in the latrine? Because they know all these things. And let me tell you, if these people were true terrorists, and if really they were ADF terrorists, like Lokech says, trust me, they would be on their way to Congo. They would be on their way to Congo, and they would have been caught in a different not jurisdiction, but in a different district, not within Kampala. They would have been caught somewhere, maybe heading out of the country. That would have been believable somewhat. But then you say that these people committed the murder and then they stay within Kampala. How stupid are they? After a week and then they come after them? Now, this is funny that Lokech is the front man for all this, but Lokech, we also understand, he is just reading statements that were availed to him. Now, he might be part of the team that was concocting these stories that are in the end contradictory, but we see that it is really interesting what is happening. Now, upon arrest, Mukwase claimed that the same body that somebody called Amin had picked the guns from him. Amin stays in Maganjo, BLC1. Upon arrest of Amin, he claimed that he had surrendered over the gun to Juma Serada, the Chapati seller in Namuongo. Amin first took us to Kagoma. He came back to Nansana, and around 1:47 p.m. he revealed Juma Serada. This was after Mukwasi pushed Amin to tell us where the guns were. The investigating team proceeded to Namuongo and arrested Serada, who reportedly named Saidi as the person who was hiding the gun. Serada led the investigators to Saidi's home in Kanyogoga in the same vicinity near the railway line, where he was found with his family in a 2-bedroom house. Saidi allegedly led the forces to the poultry house, where he was keeping the guns in a hole dug inside. Locate exhibited the 2 SMG rifles and a pistol allegedly recovered from Saidi's house. Security says the Directorate of Forensics Science, headed by Andrew Mubiru, has analyzed the bullet casings which match those recovered from Major Mohamed Chigundu, the former police spokesperson AIG Andrew Kawesi's murder scenes. Chigundu was shot, blah, blah, blah. General Okech links all suspects in the Katumba attack and the killings of Chigundu and Kawesi to a rebel ADF terror cell commanded by one Sheikh Abududdin Hubaida Tahil Bukenya, allegedly on the run, another Muslim. But the security has not satisfactorily answered the question of why 2 vital unarmed suspects, who could have been vital in revealing more information, have been shot dead instead of shooting to maim. There is only one answer to that. It is called covering your tracks or covering up evidence. That's what you do. If really those people are even killed, you need to cover your tracks. Because what we see now is the military taking over the police, capturing the police, and they are using the police to fight succession wars and to cement the dictatorship and all this kind of stuff. Because they cannot answer that question. They will tell you, no, the terrorists, these people are terrorists, they are very deadly people. Really? A person who has no gun, you have disarmed him? Why not put handcuffs on him? Did you just tell him, hey, run so that we can shoot you? Oh, were they even running in the first place? That is the question. Because these people might not even have been running. That is why it is hard to believe Museveni and his men. Earlier this year, they made up a story in Somalia that 189 Al-Shabaab militants were killed. When Twitter came out and debunked the story, and no Somali had seen any 189 Al-Shabaab being killed, they were called out on it, and they dropped their story like a hot potato, after making everything in good description. So what this means is that these people have some sort of a room where they sit, come up with stories and come up with things that they can say, or come up with the typical diversions that they can make, and find ways on how to fix them up. Now, what is interesting here as I wind up is that with Katumba Wamala, the question is, does he believe the story? And we are facing a very interesting scenario whereby the person who was supposed to be assassinated survived. Survived, ladies and gentlemen. Now that's a very big failure. So Museveni has to make up a lot for that. You have to explain. Because this general is not just going to accept these so-called stories that you're putting out there with unsubstantiated evidence. And then you kill 1, 2, 3, 4 suspects. I don't think Katumba Wamala is happy with that. As a former person who was the IGP, CDF, and minister, I don't think that he is really happy. Now, the fact that it is also Muslims, that is the same story. That's the same story. That one we know. It had to be Muslims, and I told people in the very first place. And the fact that it links up with the ADF, that is food for every day. That one we know also. And the fact that it is Baganda, we saw that coming. Come on. All right, guys, let us meet in the next one. Have a nice day.